Disclaimer: this content is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised. It was late afternoon, the kind where sunlight spills softly through the kitchen blinds, casting warm lines across the countertop. I was slicing tomatoes, the aroma of garlic and herbs filling the air, when I heard his footsteps behind me. Al, my husband of 3 years, wasn't usually home this early. Something about the quiet way he walked in caught my attention. I didn't turn around right away. I just smiled to myself and kept chopping, pretending not to notice how close he was getting. That's when it happened. He reached out and gently pulled me closer by the waist. No words. Just the sound of our breathing, the rhythm of the kitchen, and the sudden skip in my heartbeat. Al wasn't the overly romantic type. He's kind, funny, always ready to crack a joke, even in the most serious situations, but moments like this? They were rare. Maybe that's what made them feel so intense. I turned slightly, enough to see the look in his eyes. There was something there, something deeper than a playful gesture. I paused, trying to read him, and I could tell, this wasn't just a casual hug in the kitchen. This was something more. Something he wasn't saying. I felt it in the way his arms held me tighter, how his thumb brushed slowly across my hip. My heart raced, but I stayed still, caught in the unexpected shift between dinner prep and something much more intimate. For a second, it felt like the rest of the world had gone silent. No bubbling pot, no sizzling pan, just us, standing there with unspoken feelings floating between us. I looked up at him and said softly, "Everything okay?" He hesitated. Just for a breath. And then he smiled, a crooked, boyish grin that always made me melt, but his eyes told a different story. That's when I knew, he was holding something back. Something important. But before I could ask again, his phone buzzed on the counter. He ignored it. "Let it ring," he whispered, pulling me in again. "Right now, I just want to be here." That sentence alone should have calmed me. But it didn't. Because whatever he wasn't saying, it was heavy. I could feel it pressing between us. I didn't know if it was something good or something bad, but I knew our evening had just taken a sharp turn, and there was no going back. I stood there in his arms, my mind running in circles, trying to figure out what was going on. Al wasn't the type to act this way without a reason. Usually, he'd be joking around, teasing me about putting too much garlic in the pasta or telling me stories from work. But tonight, he was different. Quiet. Focused. Almost like he was memorizing this moment. I rested my head lightly on his chest, trying to calm the butterflies in my stomach. He didn't speak. Just held me like he was scared to let go. And it was in that stillness I realized, something was coming. We had always been close. Ever since we met at a friend's birthday party in downtown Chicago, our connection felt natural. He had this calm energy about him that balanced out my sometimes anxious, overthinking mind. He'd always been honest with me, sometimes too honest, and we'd promised never to keep secrets. But right now, I could feel one forming in the space between us. As the pasta boiled behind me, I gently pulled back and looked up at him. "Al, what's going on?" I asked again, softer this time, hoping he'd open up. His eyes flickered for a second, like he was about to tell me something, but then he leaned in and kissed my forehead instead. It was warm, reassuring. But it was also a way to avoid the question. "I've been thinking," he finally said, his voice low. "About us. About everything." That's all he gave me. No explanation, no detail. Just enough to make my heart race faster. I didn't press. Not yet. Because I knew that whatever it was, he wasn't ready. And part of me was scared to hear it. He gently moved past me, turning down the stove. "Let's sit for a bit," he said, nodding toward the dining table. I followed, watching him carefully. His hands trembled slightly as he poured 2 glasses of wine. He was nervous, really nervous. And that wasn't like him at all. As I took a sip and stared into his eyes, I realized something else. This wasn't just about a bad day at work or something small he forgot to tell me. It was bigger. Deeper. And maybe, it had something to do with us. Or someone else. The wine felt heavier that night, each sip sinking a little deeper. Al sat across from me, barely touching his glass. His eyes kept flicking toward the window like he was waiting for something, or someone. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but it was getting harder to ignore the feeling twisting in my chest. I wanted to ask him 100 things at once. Are you okay? Is there something I don't know? Do you still feel the same way about us? But instead, I said nothing. I just watched him. And he avoided my gaze. There was a time when silence between us was comfortable. After a long day, we'd sit on the couch, his head on my lap, sharing nothing but the soft hum of the TV. But this silence, it felt different. Heavy. Like it was holding its breath. I saw someone today, Al finally said, almost like he regretted saying it the moment the words left his mouth. My heart skipped. I didn't react, not yet. I waited for more. He rubbed his hands together and stared at the glass in front of him. It wasn't planned. Just one of those things. My mind began racing. Was it an ex? Someone from his past? Someone I didn't know about? The way he was hesitating made it clear this wasn't casual. Who was it? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. His eyes met mine, and for a moment, he looked like he might lie. But then he shook his head and sighed. Her name's Natalie, he said quietly. We were close. Before you. That name hit me like cold water. I'd heard it once, maybe twice, in passing. He never talked about her. Said it ended badly. Said it was over and done with. But from the look on his face now, I wasn't so sure anymore. Okay, I said, slowly. And what happened? He looked away again. She just showed up. Outside my office. She wanted to talk. Said she had something important to tell me. His voice was tight, like he didn't want to keep going. I didn't ask her to come. I didn't want any of this. I believed him, but it didn't calm the storm rising inside me. So, what did she say? I asked. She didn't get to. I told her I was married. That I love you. But, she didn't care. She said she was going to find a way to talk to me. To you. She said, it's not over. The words hit me like a sudden gust of wind, stealing the breath from my lungs. Not over? What did that even mean? I stood up slowly, my hands trembling, pretending to fix something in the kitchen just to keep myself from breaking down. Al followed me with his eyes, unsure if he should reach for me or give me space. Nothing about this felt simple anymore. Something was coming between us, and I didn't know if it was the past catching up, or something we weren't ready for. The kitchen felt colder now, even though the stove was still warm. I stood with my back to him, pretending to wipe the counter, though my hands weren't doing much. Al didn't move. I could feel his eyes on me, waiting, maybe hoping I'd say something to make it all feel normal again. But nothing about this felt normal. A name from his past had just slipped into our present, and it was clear she wasn't going to slip back out quietly. You didn't tell her anything about us, did you? I asked without turning around. My voice was low but sharp. About our life. No, he said quickly. Nothing. I barely spoke. I told her to leave. But the hesitation in his voice gave him away. There was something else. I turned to face him, arms crossed, and waited. She said she had a letter, he continued, something she wanted to give me in person. Said it was important. His voice faltered again. I didn't take it. Did you want to? I asked, not because I doubted him, but because I needed to hear the answer out loud. He looked at me, torn, and finally said, I don't know. That, I don't know, shattered whatever steady ground I had left under me. It wasn't just about Natalie. It was about the questions that had been quietly growing between us, questions we'd been too busy or too tired or too scared to ask. Were we still in sync? Did we still trust each other the way we used to? Were we really okay? Then came the knock. It was soft, like whoever was on the other side didn't want to disturb, but knew exactly what they were doing. Al froze. I stared at the door, heart pounding. It's her, I said before he could even move. He walked slowly toward the front, and I followed behind him. The air between us was thick with all the things we hadn't said yet. As he opened the door, the tension snapped into full silence. There she was. Natalie. Standing in the evening light, holding a small white envelope in her hand. No one spoke. The moment was suspended, 3 hearts tangled in a quiet storm, and everything we thought we knew about our marriage suddenly felt fragile. Natalie didn't say a word at first. She just stood there, her eyes locked on Al like the past hadn't gone anywhere, like it had simply been waiting for this exact moment to step back in. Her hand trembled slightly as she held the envelope out. I couldn't take my eyes off her. She was beautiful in a quiet, haunting way, like someone who carried a storm just behind her smile. Al hesitated, and that hesitation cut through me like a sharp whisper. The same man who had always known exactly where he stood, was suddenly uncertain. What is it? I asked, stepping forward. My voice was calm, but inside, I was unraveling. Natalie looked at me then, really looked, and I saw something in her eyes I didn't expect. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't anger. It was desperation. She deserves to know too, Natalie said softly, and for a second, my breath caught in my throat. What did I need to know? Al took the envelope with a shaking hand. He didn't open it. Not yet. He just stared at it like he already knew what was inside. Why now? He asked her. Because I waited, she replied, her voice almost breaking. And I shouldn't have. I should have told you 3 years ago. But I didn't want to ruin your life. Then why are you here now? I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. She looked me straight in the eyes. Because it's not just his life anymore. It's all of yours. The sentence hung there, thick and heavy. I felt my knees weaken slightly. Al opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a single sheet of paper, neatly folded. He read it once. Then again. I watched his face change, watched the blood drain from his cheeks. This can't be real, he whispered. I snatched the paper from his hand. My eyes scanned the words, and with each line, my heart pounded harder. A birth certificate. A child's name. Al's name under father. For a moment, everything blurred. The kitchen, the wine, the pasta, all of it faded. There was a child. A secret child. From before us. A child he never knew about. Or did he? My mind raced with questions, doubts, everything spinning too fast to catch. I didn't want to do this like this, Natalie said. But I couldn't hold it in anymore. He deserves to know. And so do you. Al stood frozen. I couldn't read his expression anymore. He was somewhere else, stuck between the past and the present. I didn't know what hurt more, the secret itself or the fact that it was standing in our doorway with a name and a story we weren't part of. Al stood motionless, still holding the letter as if the paper burned in his hands. I watched him, his eyes fixed on the words, his mouth slightly open, searching for breath or answers. I didn't speak. I couldn't. My heart pounded so hard I could feel it in my throat. The silence was overwhelming, broken only by the faint rustle of wind outside and the ticking clock on the wall. "I swear to you," Al finally said, voice hoarse, "I didn't know. I had no idea." I believed him, but believing didn't make the weight in my chest any lighter. I walked slowly to the table, sat down, and stared at the floor. "So what now?" I asked quietly. "You have a child?" Natalie stepped forward, voice shaking. "He's not a baby anymore. He's 2. His name is Lucas." I wasn't going to say anything, but he started asking about his dad. I just couldn't lie anymore. Al knelt beside me, gently taking my hand. "This changes things. But it doesn't change us, unless you want it to." His voice cracked. "I love you. Only you." I looked into his eyes, searching for something to hold on to. And I found it, still there, buried under the shock and pain. But just as I opened my mouth to speak, Natalie reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small photo. She placed it on the table between us. It was a picture of Lucas, bright blue eyes, a soft smile, and a birth bracelet from the hospital. My eyes caught a detail I hadn't noticed before. The date of birth. My breath caught. "Wait," I whispered, grabbing the letter again. I checked the dates. Then again. "Al. This says he was born in June. But you and I were already married in March." Al stared at the paper, then looked up at Natalie. "That's not possible. We hadn't seen each other in over a year." Natalie froze. That's when everything clicked. I turned to her, heart pounding again, but differently this time. "Are you sure he's yours?" Her silence was loud. Too loud. "I got scared," she said, voice barely audible. "I needed help. You were the only one I trusted." The twist unraveled fast. Lucas wasn't Al's son. She had lied. Out of fear, out of desperation, or something else. But in trying to fix her world, she had almost shattered ours. And just when I thought it was over, Natalie looked at me, teary-eyed, and said, "You should know. Al tried to reach out to me once. A year into your marriage." I turned to him. Now I wasn't sure which truth was real. Al didn't say anything at first. His eyes flicked from me to Natalie, the tension in the room sharp enough to cut through. The confession had left us hanging in a different kind of silence, not one of pain, but of disbelief. The kind that comes when everything you thought was broken suddenly starts making a little more sense. "You called her?" I finally asked, my voice steady but low. Al nodded, slowly. "Once. A long time ago. I had questions I needed answers to. Closure. But she never called back, and I never tried again." I looked at Natalie. Her eyes were red. I didn't answer because I thought it was better for both of you if I just disappeared. But then Lucas came. Anne. I panicked. The photo on the table stared back at us, a quiet reminder of the chaos a single secret could cause. But now, the truth was all out in the open. Al wasn't a father. Natalie wasn't a villain, just a woman who'd gotten lost in her own past. And me? I was standing in the middle of it, realizing that love, real love, doesn't break when it's tested. It stretches, it bends, but if it's strong enough, it holds. Al reached for my hand again. This time, I didn't pull away. I looked at him, the man I chose, the man who had never lied, even when it would have been easier. He leaned in close and whispered, "I only ever wanted you." Natalie quietly stepped back, taking one last look at us before nodding. "I'm sorry for everything," she said. "And thank you, for listening." Then she turned and walked out, leaving the door gently open behind her. The house felt lighter after she left, like we'd finally let go of something we didn't even realize we were carrying. Al and I sat together for a long time, not needing to say much. There was nothing else to uncover. No more hidden truths. Just us. Later that night, while cleaning up the kitchen, Al wrapped his arms around me from behind, just like he had when this all started. "We'll be okay," he whispered. And somehow, deep in my chest, I knew he was right. Sometimes love isn't about perfect stories or picture-perfect endings. Sometimes, it's about choosing each other, even when things get messy. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Tell us in the comments, how did this ending make you feel? Would you want to see a sequel about what happens next? Tap the like button if this story moved you, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories just like this.